Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today I bring you huge, really exciting news. That's right, FFG has announced rotation for Star Wars Destiny. Now, I know there's probably some of you out there going, "What? I spent all this money on my cards rotation. Forget that, I'm out." Calm down. Calm down. Let me first explain to you why rotation is so good for this game and really any game. What's so critical about rotation is that one of the biggest problems FFG has had, and one of my biggest reservations about even playing Star Wars Destiny, is that they tend to rotate too slow, and what happens is they get this massive, unwieldy card pool where the only way to release impactful cards is by having massive power creep, and that leads to a degenerate game very quickly. That's not as fun. That's not like the game you once played. It's like if Spirit of Rebellion happened in every single game after like 2 years. And so they've announced a very aggressive rotation system, which is basically every 2 years, the third year it will rotate out. So they have a little diagram here of, so standard is going to be Awakenings and Legacies, and then after that it will rotate out. What's really cool about this is that, okay, there's this smaller card pool for standard, and that's great, that's useful. But the other cards aren't dead, which is also nice. So we have 3 formats being announced here. So we have what was really exciting, and which is rotation, but we have 3 formats to go along with it. So there's going to be infinite, which means everything's legal, which is great. So your stuff theoretically is never worthless. It's just another format. There's going to be standard, which is the last 2 full cycles, and it's not quite the last 2 full cycles. The second diagram shows you it's the last full cycle and then the next cycle. So if we're not that far into the cycle, I guess we're only going to have part of it, though this diagram is a little weird because it's I'm not really sure if that's the whole thing or what's going on. But basically, when the third cycle comes out, Awakenings will get rotated out. What's really interesting is there's an even smaller cycle, which is just the current cycle and products part of an unreleased cycle. So what that means is like the 2-player set came out before the next cycle, so that will stay in. But as soon as Legacies hits, boom, the whole Awakening stuff is gone. So Spirit of Rebellion's gone, Empire at War is gone, Awakenings is gone, those old starter sets are gone. So for the Trilogy, it's only going to be the newest stuff. And this is going to be really good for new players. Let's say you're a brand new player, you just want to get into the game. All there is Legacies. You can just tell somebody, hey man, go buy a starter set of each, maybe buy a 2-player box, buy the Legacy singles you need, boom, you got a deck. The downside, of course, it's going to be more restrictive, right? Theoretically, decks won't be as strong, though there could be just some one broken card that carries it. We'll have to see on that one. But it's going to feel much more limited. So for those of you like myself who still pine for the days of Awakenings, when it was just Awakenings, and say, oh, the game was in a magical place, there's a greater chance you'll hit moments like that with the Trilogy cycle. And so what's really exciting about this is that we're now going to have 3 different formats to cater to different people's needs, right? And so on the one hand, that's amazing. We're going to have all these different ways of playing. Do you just want all the cards to be legal? Awesome. Play infinite. Do you want a really limited card pool so you can play with your friends who don't really want to invest? Awesome. Have a Trilogy event. Do you want to play the standard? Cool. That's there for you as well. And so that part is awesome. So there are a lot of huge pluses to rotation. Now I want to sort of briefly address what I see as the potential negatives, though I think the positives greatly outweigh it. So here are my reservations with rotation. The first one is people freaking out and quitting the game because of rotation. I don't think that's going to happen because there are the 3 formats, and I think people are going to see, you know what, I'll just play infinite with my group, and I'm fine with that. The person who I think this is going to be best for are really hardcore players that want to have different formats. So One of my biggest pet peeves, and I said this before and people got really upset with me, is I don't like when a shop randomly makes rules for the game. Like, we're only going to do monocolored decks. Like, I just feel like if the developers haven't tested that, let's not do that. Let's not be the ones who make the random rules. And now with having 3 different formats, shops can make really cool decisions. Like, oh, standards are normal. But you know what? People are bored with that. So let's shift over to a Trilogy League or something to really bring in some new blood. And I think that's awesome. As you see, I'm so excited about this that even while talking about the negatives, I quickly got derailed to the positives. That is yet another positive to rotation. Here's the negative. The negative is that there are now 3 formats, and I'm not sure we have the player base for it. If there had been somehow multiple formats earlier, which there couldn't have been because there weren't enough cards, maybe, but like at least in my local area and most areas that I'm aware of, the player base has dwindled substantially. Splitting it into 3 different player bases is going to be incredibly dangerous. So I think what's going to end up happening is stores will have their normal events and having side events, and I think that'll fix it. Another thing that I'm kind of worried about is FFG's OP. Their organized play has been really lackluster so far with one format. It really scares me to think about how bad it could get with 3 formats. Like, if you're supporting one format poorly, are you really going to be able to handle 3? Now the plus side of that, of course, is like Gen Con. There was the one tournament. There was just the tournament. Now you would think they'll have to at least support some grouping of tournaments. There's probably going to be standard for the World Championship or whatever championship it is. There'll be like the Draft Championship. Then there can be the Infinite Championship. Then there can be like this cool Trilogy intro tournament that probably won't have a championship, but is a good way to bring in new players who are at the event. So hopefully they can make it happen. I just get worried when it comes to FFG and taking on more, because I just really feel like they're not that they're bad at organized play. I think people who say that aren't giving them credit. What I mean is, because they have such a huge amount of games, like they don't have one organized play guy for Destiny or one organized play woman for Destiny. The person is spread over all of their games, and it's a very, very taxing job. And so it's either going to be good for Destiny because now there's more stuff that they have to focus on and really work on it, or it's going to be a negative, and I'm not sure about that yet. Speaking of organized play, apparently we're getting Star Wars Destiny Galactic qualifiers out of this, which is cool, and they're going to have prizes that look kind of awesome. So we're just going to click on prizes. Prizes, boom. So look at these prizes. You get stuff like, this is not working at all. Okay. We get these cards. It looks like this cool Palpatine, Maz that are going to be plastic cards. These spot gloss battlefields. There's going to be cool stuff. There's going to be some really cool stuff with that. All right, back to potential negatives. Another negative that might happen is that, so for someone who collects all the cards, you're fine. Don't worry about this. This is not a negative at all. For someone like me, who has gotten away from this thought of I need to buy everything because there's so many bad legendaries, I've just decided I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to get the cards I need. It's going to be more challenging, right? Because now that you're working over 3 formats, on the plus side, more cards are going to be viable. On the minus side, I think it's going to be closer to where you're going to want all the cards. And maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe that negative is actually a positive. And it's like, hey, the cards that are supposedly bad are going to be good now, and you're complaining about that. You know, don't complain about that, and that's totally reasonable. But it's just going to be a little bit harder to be like, I have my deck, right? Like, I went out, I bought the singles I needed for my deck for the format. You're going to need 3 decks that are always changing, because rotation is constantly changing what's legal and what the structure is going to be. But overall, I think rotation is going to be amazing for the game. I was really getting worried, because if Spirit of Rebellion stays around for 5 years, the game has to be completely warped around the power level of Spirit of Rebellion. The faster they can get rid of it, the faster they can now make reasonable cards. And I feel like Empire at War is full of reasonable cards, most of which are unplayable because the power level of Spirit of Rebellion is so high that it squeezes out a lot of these cards. And you've heard me talk a lot about opportunity cost when I'm evaluating cards. Like, this card's super cool and looks really fun and is powerful, but we're 4 sets in, opportunity cost is high, I probably won't run this in such a small deck. Now when you move to something like the Trilogy format, opportunity cost diminishes substantially, and now those cards that are good, are cool, are fun, may actually end up in meta decks. So there is so much good to look forward to with rotation that if you're one of the people that's really worried and feels like you need to quit the game because rotation is going to make you spend more money or differently, I don't think you should worry about that. I think there's an option for you, and I think it's going to be really, really great for the game. And I'm really looking forward to when Spirit of Rebellion rotates out. I know it's not for a while, but I'm excited for it. And I'm actually really excited to play the Legacies only Trilogy format. You get the Rivals pack, you get the 2 starter sets, you get the 2-player set, and you get Legacies. I'm really curious to see what that looks like. That could be the most fun we've had since Awakenings. So hopefully you're as excited as I am for the rotation. Again, it's going to be amazing. Thanks, FFG. That's a huge, 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 huge announcement that makes me so happy. And I'll see you next time on Tiny Grimes Games.